Hey everyone, welcome to the MotoAlliance podcast. I'm Peter Kapsner, and I'm here with the general manager of MotoAlliance, Kevin Book. Hey Book, here we are again with another podcast episode.
Here we are.
Yeah, pretty exciting today. We've got somebody that we've just met. We've known the company and one of our dealers for a very long time. The owner of the company is Mark Smith, but we are just getting to know a little bit better one of his main Powersports accessories managers. And we thought coming into this episode that it was Josh Faucher. The name was spelled Foucher, but we were corrected, were we not?
We were.
I mean, it was much more sophisticated than Faucher. It was
sure.
It was like a French derivative of Foucher. It was Foucher, I think, is how he said it.
And
right?
I would have never had the confidence to ever lead with Faucher.
Never in a million.
For sure.
So we better bring him in just to clarify. This is what we got, Josh. We do have this right now. It's Foucher, right? Not Faucher.
That's correct, Foucher.
Is there anyone in your life that you've met for the first time that ever led with Foucher, that just saw the last name and knew right out of the gate that it was Foucher?
And you weren't in Paris
or
something.
Right.
Well, fair enough. Interestingly enough, no, but there are a couple places, I shouldn't say no, most commonly no, in Canada and down south, like in Louisiana. I was down there for Mardi Gras once, and the hotel we were staying in, it was Mr. Foucher right out of the gate. So
It's
it's rare. It certainly doesn't happen here in Kentucky. I can promise you that.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us. I think just right off the bat, it would be good to highlight that you really spend a lot of time emphasizing your website and your e-commerce platform, but it's a derivative of MLS Powersports, a broader organization. So just tell us about what you do day in and day out. Where can people find you? All of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the PG&A director for MLS Powersports. We have a handful of different online platforms. The largest, of course, we sell on Amazon like that most big players are. It's not ideal for everybody, but it is access to a very large swath of customers that we wouldn't otherwise have access to. But our main website for selling anything accessory is going to be awesomeoffroad.com. That's spelled out, no dashes or anything like that. We do also sell OEM parts online, and those can be found at mlspowersports.com, or there's a link to that as well on awesomeoffroad.com.
And you guys, you really are pretty well embedded with most of the main manufacturers out there, like us at MotoAlliance, but KFI Products and Super ATV, a number of other powersports accessories businesses. So it's got to be pretty fun, I would imagine, to get to have as many conversations as you do with some of the really cool players in the industry.
It is. There's always a lot of, like a better term, a lot of balls in the air. We're dealing with a lot of the big players that are bringing out new products. And we also work with several different manufacturers and trying to get them to either update or improve existing products, because we kind of have our ear to the ground, especially here East Coast. That's a totally different world as far as riding goes than West Coast, and so the customer's needs are a little bit different, and it sometimes takes some I don't want to say coercion, maybe convincing that some things need to change if they want to be able to capture this area's market.
So there are for sure some of the various machines that we want to talk specifically about, because I know that MLS really has made a name for themselves with at least a couple of them. But before we get into any of that, tell us how long you've been with MLS, and then I'm just curious to know how business within the last, 2 to 3 years has looked for you, and how it's unique, or if there's something that is unique that has come out of these last couple of years to what you were seeing before.
Sure. So I've actually been with MLS for about 3 years, and in that time frame, as a dealership, I'm really lucky because a lot of powersports dealerships kind of treat PG&A as like either a necessary evil or it's their main business, and everything else is a necessary evil. Some names like Partzilla is a great example of that. Parts is their core business. From my understanding, the major unit side, sales side of it is kind of secondary to that. And because they've exploded, right? They do a great job of what they're doing. They cover a very large market, and they're able to have it set up that way. I'm really lucky here at MLS because we're all, the sales side is obviously a huge part of our business, the biggest part of our business at this point. But there's a lot of attention that's able to be given to their PG&A department, and we kind of get to stand on our own 2 feet. And it's been an exciting few years just in growth, specifically online. We've, multiple times over grown year over year, and that's attributed to our dedication and effort to take care of customers as a small business would, even though we're serving nationwide, and making sure those customers are taken care of as best as we can.
Sure. And I don't know, maybe this is an acronym that's common to the industry, and it just shows that I'm not common to the industry. But PG&A, when you say that, you're talking about what specifically?
It's like parts, goods, and accessories.
Okay.
So anything that isn't like the machine itself, parts, garments, and accessories. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually interchangeable to some extent. We actually don't do a lot in garments, clothing or anything like that. Just based on our limited showroom size. That's, if anybody's had any experience in that world, it takes a large footprint to do that successfully.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's pretty intriguing, Josh, when I head to your site at awesomeoffroad.com, that pretty prominent on the front page are these brands, Kawasaki and Arctic Cat, because I think that it's just a little unusual compared to how much emphasis seems to be getting placed on Polaris these days, and CF Moto seems to be on the rise as well. But we noted a few years ago, I know that Mark had said that you guys really expanded in the Arctic Cat space and became a very prominent player in that community. We've toured the Arctic Cat plant. It's not too far for us here in Minnesota, up in Thief River Falls. Seems like good people, a good community. I think they're are they owned by Textron now? That's part of the relationship there, right? But I'm just curious. So speak to that. Why Arctic Cat? What do you see that Arctic Cat does that's different than maybe some of the other OEM suppliers?
Okay. Well, it's a little bit of a tough question because there's the Arctic Cat of yesteryear and the Arctic Cat now.
Yeah, that's true. That's very fair.
In 2018 is when the Textron name became more prominent within the product line. There's some changes that were made, and they cut some machines out of the lineup. Right now there's only a handful, and really technically only are 2 side by sides. The Double X, I still think to this day, is one of the best naturally aspirated sport side by sides on the market. Unfortunately, Textron being as big of a company as it is, I think they've opened themselves up to multiple avenues. One of those includes a line that you can find at some major outdoor retailers, and so that, especially in 2020 when products and goods were hard to come by, that stretched them pretty thin, and then you kind of have to pick one or the other. And so for us, the major unit inflow for us to be able to sell the units has really slowed down over the last year or so, probably 2 years, really. That being said, that machine, the Double X, is a nice hybrid for East Coast, West Coast, but really is a machine that's made to be going fast, right? And a lot of East Coast riding is below 20 miles an hour. Like, you're rock climbing, you're in mud, you're in twisty turnies, and machines that are durable and can withstand that. Lots of low end grunt, comfortable. Those are the kind of things that intrigue riders, especially riders who it's not their first machine. Now, we do get a lot of first time riders buying Kawasaki because they've kind of made a name for themselves in the reliability area, and so that's usually pretty high on new riders lists as well. They hear horror stories of people spending a fortune on axles, this, that, and the other, and they try to avoid that. But we also have a lot of guys that, you know, were repeat customers for us in Arctic Cat, and they've moved over to Kawasaki, and they've been happy with it.
Okay. So, I mean, you brought it up. I was going to ask you about Kawasaki as well. So, I mean, I'd be interested to hear similarly to your thoughts on Kawasaki and, you know, what it's been like just working with them, what you're seeing in their vehicles, you know, what feedback are you getting from riders on their machines?
It's interesting. So there's the first impression most of the time, you've got kind of two groups of people. If we talk specifically about the KRX, for those that don't know, the KRX 1000, that's their sport side-by-side entry. That's a 999 cc parallel twin, and it's naturally aspirated. Although we've supercharged a handful of them, and that's great fun. But the machine itself is obviously not going to be as quick or as powerful as some of the naturally aspirated or forced induction machines that are out there. And even, you know, compared to something like the Double X, which is a similarly sized engine, naturally aspirated is just geared different power levels, ultimately a different goal. And so one to the other, you kind of got, you know, fast or slow is usually the argument that comes up. But again, I go back to, for us and in our neck of the woods, it doesn't matter that you can go 70 miles an hour, right? There's not anywhere to do that. Specifically in Kentucky, they're not street legal for most of the states.
Okay.
So that's not really relevant, and most of the riding that you do out here is not important, but durability is. And time again, that's what we come across with Kawasaki, is they are just, I mean, everything breaks, and every manufacturer and every machine has faults. But man, if I was to have a machine that I needed to rely on in any way, it would be a Kawasaki.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've referenced a couple of times that the East Coast is a different kind of vibe and environment than the South, the West, certainly than we are up north. It sort of blows our mind if there's any part of the country that doesn't have snow. So obviously we're very snowplow heavy and heater heavy up here, but you're talking about an entirely different kind of riding experience. And so if you're rolling out there with your Kawasaki, what kinds of things do you need in terms of PG&A? Because it's not going to be snowplows and heaters, typically speaking. I'm sure there's some market for that, but what do you just say? We've got to have this if we're going to be riding the way we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, tire sizes is really important. It's another benefit to the KRX, right? You can stick 35s on a stock KRX without rubbing. And that's bigger than you can put on a Double X or most machines out there, which gives it great ground clearance. They already have fantastic travel, that kind of stuff. So first thing out of the gate, most people are doing are putting, you know, at least 33s, if not 35s, on their KRX. Beyond that, it depends on the kind of rider it is, because we have seasons here, right? Down in the South, it's basically always hot with a few exceptions, and up north, it's pretty cool. And then you've got a really relatively mild summer, right? Here, we could have both ends of the spectrum, and my goodness, it could be within the same day. You know, we've had snow on the ground in the morning and 60 degrees in the afternoon. So it depends on what the rider's going to be doing. Upper doors, windshields, rear windows, obviously heaters, those kind of things are pretty important. But generally speaking, body protection, that'd probably be the second thing people go for. So, you know, tree kickers, Nerf bars, bumpers, headlight, tail light guards, those kind of things. And then, which I'm pretty excited about, your all's new product line, storage is always really important. So one of the benefits to the KRX is it's got a really large cab versus some of the other two-seaters, but every machine can use more storage, especially, you know, if you're going to be gone for any length of time. You got to pack, you know, you've got lunch, you've got helmets, you've got audio, radio, whatever it is, and you need that space. And I'm pretty excited about that product line from you all, because I think there's a there's definitely a need for it out there.
Yeah, it's been what you're referencing, and I appreciate that. As we purchased out Gemco products about this time last year, and they came into the market with 3 cargo boxes, primarily for the Razor lineup. They were working on some for the General and Ranger, but just couldn't really get it to market in time. So I think we're up to 9 SKUs now. We've renamed it the Highlands Cargo line, and to your point, Josh, it's just been a game changer in many ways for our company because every machine needs that kind of storage, and I know. We've got the scans up and running for the Kawasaki lineup. I think all of them, K-Book, right? KRX, and I think we've got them all. And excited to partner with you. I think we'll probably send a couple engineers down at some point and just make sure that everything is fit up properly. But that should be here, I would think, by late summer, early fall at this point.
Oh, that's super exciting. Another thing that's on the front, which is just released this month. I don't know if you guys have done much research on it yet, but Kawasaki's released a new mule lineup for this year that's using the 999cc parallel twin as opposed to the old 800 class engine. So it's got a lot more pep than it used to. Gave it some extra ground clearance, and from what I'm seeing, I'm kind of guessing they're kind of aiming at the Ranger XP market, where the mule hasn't traditionally played because the mule has been really just in its name, right? It's a workhorse. It's fantastic at what it does, but getting out and playing wasn't one of those things. As at least it wasn't a primary focus. So with the new release of the 1000cc FX, FXT, and FXR, it's competing right alongside things like the Terex as far as ground clearance and travel, and all the turning radius is even smaller. So we're really excited about getting those. We've got a couple of the FXTs already here. The FXRs are shortly behind those.
Yeah, I'm just on the website right now, and they do such a good job, Kawasaki, of aesthetics as well. I think it's an underrated part of this whole thing is you want your machine to look cool at the end of the day. If you're spending between $17,000 to $37,000, right? Sometimes I marvel at the design elements of some of these machines, and Kawasaki's done a good job with how they do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do a great job. They generally are pretty on trend with color schemes and colorways as well. That's something that sometimes gets a little stagnant with other brands, but pretty much every year Kawasaki releases the new model year comes with at least a handful of new colorways, if not an entire refresh.
Going back to Arctic Cat for just a second, I know you mentioned that Textron bought them out. I'm assuming you deal still with a lot of the other suppliers out there in these rash of buyouts that have happened the last probably 3 or 4 years, from Nivel Products seeming to buy everybody in sight, and of course Super ATV got bought out. Are you seeing that this is changing the industry a bit in terms of what's available and what's not? Because it does seem like Arctic Cat really is, and Textron of course is falling behind. Are there accessories? Are there things worth looking at for Arctic Cat compared to some of these other manufacturers?
So something that Arctic Cat did really well at the time of the release of Double X was they did come out with a huge lineup of factory accessories, and because the Double X has became relatively unchanged over the last few years, there are a lot of accessories still available for it, and we still it's a big seller for us still. And it's interesting because I think when it came out, it was kind of ahead of the game, especially in the naturally aspirated side of side by sides, and it still holds its own. So there's definitely enough out there, accessory wise. If you were to be interested in Double X, I wouldn't. There should be no pause in buying one for worry of aftermarket accessories anyway. As a broader statement with the buyouts, like you said, Novell, Super 8TV, I think in generality, or in general terms, I guess it's been a challenge because it used to be, you kind of know what trees to shake to get things done with a specific vendor or whatever the case may be, and as these mergers happen, right, that all changes, and trying to keep up with who to go to for what, and what's really going to be that answer. And, used to be really confident in being able to tell a customer, this, I know how whatever manufacturer or vendor is going to handle this. I know how they're going to handle that. So this is what's going to happen, to go pass that information along. And as they change and grow, those answers aren't always as straightforward. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we face with it. Obviously, there's a lot of technological challenges that these companies face when they do these, that trickles down to us, when we're processing orders or invoices or trying to look up parts or invoices, et cetera. Those things changing as rapidly as they do can throw a wrench in things. On the plus side, it shows that there's a lot of interest from big players to jump into this. Neville's a great example of that. They've done a lot of different stuff, and they've poured a lot of money into this industry.
Yeah. Josh, it's so, especially for me, because I'm new to the industry, and, I did talk to you, I think, probably within the first 2 weeks of being at Moto. So I've learned quite a bit. I know I've got a ton to learn. I learned the acronym today that I'm sure is
yeah. He was thinking it was a golfing term for sure.
Within the industry than maybe I assume, but whatever.
Right.
So I love having the conversations like this, because I think your perspective, just to even lift the hood a little bit under these types of vehicles within the respective models and manufacturers, really can be beneficial to people as they are invested within one brand or another or whatever. And these aren't conversations that you just stumble upon. So I really appreciate just being able to answer some of those questions. I think it's appropriate if we, were to start the conversation, that we look to potentially end it with you correcting some Midwest boys on how we pronounce some things. You have a you have a mountain range out east of you. Are these the Appalachian Mountains or the Appalachia Mountains?
This is critical too, Josh.
Yeah.
I was recently corrected, and I don't even know if I was corrected properly. So we're going to the expert right now.
And here I was, I was like, hey, we could probably talk to them about this, because this is like close to home for whatever. And I realized it's like 6 hours away or 8 hours away or something like that. So, but I was interested to hear just how you pronounce it there.
Yeah,
and I'd be curious to know how accessible it is as a destination, because I think that's interesting for riders to know, especially up here in the Midwest. What are these places that are known destinations where riders go? And I'd love to know, even just if it's not specifically those mountains, which I still want to know how you pronounce them.
It's like the suspense is building right now.
But what is the general area that you find within your area that's really special that you like to frequent?
Yeah, Appalachian.
Appalachian.
It is Appalachian. Because I was corrected by somebody who went to school
that's
there.
How you're going to hear it here.
Yep. All right.
There's a lot of that. And the same thing. Look, we have the same deal in Louisville, right? Louisville. So everybody says it here. Most people say Louisville.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Louisville, which is even worse. But there's a lot of that here. You should hear Siri. She has a real hard time.
Oh, hilarious.
So yeah, East Coast stuff, that's going to give you a really good taste of what you're going to find. Anywhere out there, like Black Mountain's a great one to kind of give you a good perspective. Wind Rock is probably my favorite park. It's down in Tennessee. They do a great job of both maintaining the trails and, keeping people, keeping the guardrails up to make sure things don't get out of hand or anything. And they also know how to have a good time. So that would be probably my recommendations if you wanted to see something in this area. They're very accessible. Generally speaking, they all have great campgrounds or camp areas attached to them. So bring your camper, toy hauler, where the case may be. They've got plenty of room and hookups. Most of them also have access to cabins or other like hotels, those kind of things, relatively close.
That's great.
Yeah. No. Well, Josh, there's a lot of people that sell a lot of products out there, and it's obviously a huge industry. But we're always just real encouraged with you guys, because you're not just throwing up a website and trying to make a quick buck. I mean, you've been at this. Your whole team's been at it for quite a number of years, and so we just we tell people, go to Awesome Off-Road, go to MLS Powersports. That's where you can get some great stuff from people that know what they're doing. So. I think we've been in partnership with you guys for about 15 years, hoping for another 15 ahead, but just really appreciate all the time you guys spend just getting this whole thing dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate you guys as well. You're the only winch we carry, and we've had wonderful success with it year after year. And, we appreciate you guys always being there and supporting us, and we'll continue to do the same for you guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Again, people listening, go to awesomeoffroad.com. K-Book. I mean, these are cool people right here.
For sure.
We love it.
Absolutely.
So, Josh, thanks for taking the time. We'd love to have you again here on the MotoAlliance podcast.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you soon on the next episode of our MotoAlliance podcast.